Hi and Assalamu alaikum. I am Dr. Aisha Bashiruddin, an educationist, researcher, and writer. Welcome to the 11th presentation video based on my research on Muslim women in America. In the last two presentation videos, I discussed theme 2 by focusing on the baby boomers and Generation X. In this presentation video, I'm going to continue to discuss theme 2 with particular focus on Generation Y, that is, ages between 24 to 39. So stay tuned. Please subscribe to my channel and press the bell icon. Two sub-themes that emerged from the analysis of the narratives of the women of Generation Y about forging identity in day-to-day practices are A. Conversation with Allah, and B. Hijab or no hijab. The first theme, conversation with Allah, traces the various ways in which most of the narratives of Generation Y show that conversation with Allah is deemed to be very important in their daily lives. Different narratives talk of different ways in which these women have conversation with Allah. The analysis of the narratives provide evidence that the Muslim women of Generation Y practiced their religion in a variety of different ways. Many of them talked about their conversation with Allah by praying to Him. Some confessed that due to their daily life activities, such as their jobs or their obligations as students, does not allow them to pray 5 times a day. For example, Abba from Cuba believes praying to be part of her personal piety and her personal relationship with Allah. She thinks that it is entirely her personal preference under the social conditions in which she lives her life. Her employer does not give her time to pray during her duty hours. But according to her, and I quote, I keep on chanting the short surahs and names of Allah whenever I have the time and pray when I get home, unquote. Sadia from Ghana talked about her beliefs and practices of Islam. She has strong belief that the main purpose for which Allah created human beings is to worship Him. She said, and I quote, most of the time I try to practice this, but sometimes, as any human being, I transgress. I seek forgiveness from Allah when I cannot, for example, perform my prayers 5 times a day, unquote. Daulat from Jordan says that she believes in the final day of judgment when she will be assessed for her deeds, so she tries to perform her religious obligations to the best of her ability. The analysis of the narratives also provide evidence that many of these women engage in their own interpretations of their religion, which are mostly based on their need and situation. For example, Almina from Ghana points out that she researches ways in which she can have flexibility in her religious obligations within the social fabric of America. She said, I quote, sometimes it is difficult to pray when I am out of the house, so I pray when I come home, unquote. Some think that they have been conditioned by family to pray to Allah by performing salah and by turning to Allah for dua. Isa from Uganda states that she makes private dua to Allah, which is intended for His ears and heart. Some also mention that they practice their religion by participating in zikr, that is, chanting verses from the Quran or names of Allah. All this acknowledges the oneness of Allah and that He is the only one who can listen and respond to their prayers. Zaitoon from Pakistan says that she has strong belief in the core values of Islam and she refrains from drinking, drugs, and premarital relationships with men. As a Muslim woman, she said that she is rather inconsistent. She states, and I quote, I am religious, but I do not wear hijab. I do not pray regularly or go to listen to religious lectures or go to masjid. I do as much as I can. Unquote. Others believe that they have conversation with Allah by observance of 5 pillars of Islam. For example, Maab from Cuba pointed out that her understanding rests on the belief that she has to practice the 5 pillars of Islam. She states, and I quote, I believe that Allah is one and Muhammad, peace be upon him, is his prophet. Salah, that is prayer 5 times a day, fasting during Ramadan, paying zakat, and going on the holy pilgrimage. Unquote. Farida from Pakistan prays 5 times a day. Initially, she did not know why she was praying, but gradually she learned about it. Now she knows how to pray effectively. She came to know that when she prays to Allah, she is in conversation with Allah. She knows the translation of the Arabic verses which she recites in her prayer. She prays to Allah all the time. She talks to Him in her language because He is all merciful and understands her feelings. Religious practices also include gratitude to Allah when we celebrate Eid. The women said that during this time we ask for forgiveness in the month of Ramadan. We make our plans around our religious ceremony. For example, if a wedding is being arranged, it is said that it will be after the Eid. Sadia from Ghana states that while she observes fast during Ramadan, she is constantly in conversation with Allah, seeking for His forgiveness. She states, and I quote, I am closest to Allah during Ramadan when I fast only for Him, ask for His forgiveness and mercy, and go to Jannah after my death. Unquote. Likewise, Ahba from Cuba, Maab from Cuba, and Mehreen from Africa state that after Ramadan, when they are very close to Allah, they have conversation with Allah through praying and by reading the Quran. According to Mehreen from Africa, she says that she gets the reward at the end of the month when all the Muslims celebrate the ritual holiday of the Islamic year called Eid al-Fitr. Likewise, Maab from Cuba narrates that during Ramadan, she helps her mother in preparing food for the time that they break the fast. She states, and I quote, "We all as Muslims eat and thank Allah for what He has provided us." Unquote. Farida from Pakistan said that when she goes to the college during Ramadan, she does not eat or drink anything. She states, and I quote, "I educate my friends about Ramadan who belong to different religions and its benefits for the Muslims, such as discipline and the pleasure of sharing with others the meals which are provided by Allah." Unquote. Almina from Ghana said that she went for Hajj with her family and prayed to Allah and also visited the grave of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. All this experience was very intense and enriching for her soul. The second sub-theme that emerges is hijab or no hijab, which focuses on the way these women perceive their appearance as Muslim women identity. It details the way they feel about being a Muslim woman in America and the way they dress up and present themselves in their day-to-day practices. In the analysis of the narratives by Generation Y, it seems obvious that these young women in America are trying to deal with the tension between their parents' religious, traditional, and cultural norms and the American environment, which is propagating freedom, equal rights, and the status of women. They are continuously trying to negotiate their Muslim identity, and they talk about their appearance and specifically about wearing hijab or not wearing hijab as their day-to-day practices in forging their identity as Muslim women. There are about half of the women in this sample of Muslim women of Generation Y who wore hijab. They are of the opinion that their appearance identifies them as a Muslim woman. Many of these Muslim women stated that they got accustomed to wearing hijab when they reached puberty. It was a natural transition for them as they were living in a Muslim family and community in which hijab was a usual part of dressing of Muslim women. Daulat from Palestine states that she wore hijab as a young girl because in her household and among her friends, everyone wore it and understood the significance of it. Since childhood, she was taught what Muslims should do and what it means to be a Muslim. Farida from Pakistan considers herself Muslim before considering herself American or Pakistani. At home, she was taught modesty. She wears hijab and she says, and I quote, "It is not only hijab, it is the way you walk and how you talk." Unquote. She wore modest clothes, shalwar kameez and dupatta when she was in middle and high school. She states, and I quote, "I also started wearing a scarf to cover my head." For many people in America, it is a struggle to wear a hijab, but for me, it was the easiest decision I have ever made. I wear hijab and I feel proud of my Muslim identity. Unquote. She said that she would explain to her friends about it, and they respected her for who she was. The Muslim men, when they talked to her, they kept their gaze down in respect. Maab from Cuba states that her long, loosely fitting gown and her scarf that she wraps loosely around her head represents her to be a modest Muslim woman. She states, and I quote, "I feel comfortable because according to Islam, it protects me from lustful gazes of the opposite sex." Unquote. Others stated that as they started getting to know more about Islam, they started wearing hijab. Sadia from Ghana stated that she started wearing hijab only 3 years ago when she started mingling with Muslim women who all wore hijab. She felt left out and she wanted to be part of the group, so she started wearing as well. And she still is in the process of forming her Muslim identity. Some of these women confessed that their dressing and physical appearance was influenced by being in a community of Muslims and attending prayers in masjid and attending dars. One example is that of Isa from Uganda, who states that when she started learning more about Islam through attending dars and by listening to Muslim scholars online, she felt that her appearance should represent who she was. There is another group of women who do not think that their appearance needs to be revealed, and they are identified as Muslim women. So they feel that wearing or not wearing hijab does not make them Muslims or non Muslims. There are several reasons that they put forth and explain why they do not wear hijab. Zaitoon from Pakistan states that the reason that she does not wear hijab is that in her family women never wore it. In America, when she goes to the mosque or religious gatherings, she covers her head. Often she dresses up modestly. She states, and I quote, "I wear clothes which are not too tight. I wear full sleeves and wear jeans." Unquote. Abba from Cuba says that it is unclear in the Quran about wearing of hijab, so she chooses not to wear it because if she wears hijab, she feels alienated from the rest of the group that she hangs out with. She speaks, and I quote, "For me, it is more important to follow the basic principles of Islam and have a good character, such as be honest, caring, and have good behavior rather than covering myself." Unquote. Mehreen from Africa narrates that her parents have been living in America for more than 30 years and are both professionals. They never felt that wearing hijab was necessary. They were living in a free country and culture. According to their family back home, they were secularized in their religious practice. Thus, her mother decided not to wear a hijab. She never asked her daughters to wear it either. Likewise, Zaitoon from Pakistan said that she lives in a free country and that she can choose to wear or not wear a hijab. She said she believed in the slogan, "My choice, my right, and my life," which she believed represents her perfectly. Almina from Ghana states that when she grew up, she did not consider wearing a hijab, and her parents did not pressurize her to wear it. When she started her college, she found some Muslim students there and she became friends with them. She started reading on this topic and was convinced that she should wear it to please Allah and to forge her Muslim identity. She said, and I quote, "In hijab, I found modest beautification which pleases Allah." Unquote. Similarly, Zaitoon from Pakistan said, and I quote, "Though I wear westernized clothes, but I make sure that they are loose and cover my body, and I cover myself with a hijab." Unquote. Thank you for joining. See you next week with a new presentation video. Until then, goodbye and Allah Hafiz.